coming at you. Good Tuesday, everybody. Welcome once again to BTL Bass Talk Live, where we're going to talk bass fishing and anything else that we want to talk about. Matthew, day number 2 of a 4-day sequence of guests. And yesterday, tremendous amount of feedback from the G-Man Show. And looking forward to today. We have Steve Kennedy on, and during our little Skype test to make sure everything was set up, he's enormously fired up about this interview. Seems to be.
Being facetious?
No, seems to be. Seems to be. So I had vivid memories of the last, what was it, 7 years ago, 6 years ago, where we had the garbage truck out front knocking down power poles during the interview. What are you doing, man? You're like...
No,
I have no idea what you're doing.
As we logged on, I had Steve Kennedy's stats pulled up, and I'm scrolling through it, and I noticed something that I had never noticed before. And of course, I go through them before each tournament, and something stuck out to me. And we'll get to it with Steve, because I will ask him about it. I don't know if he'll be thrilled that I'm going to ask him about it, but there's something that really kind of caught my attention that I find fascinating.
Give me a hint. What does it have to do with?
Something that happens just about every year to him that you would not expect to happen.
Huh.
Just kind of think of that. We'll have to hold on to it.
Okay. All right. A couple of housekeeping items real quick. Dude, I got a message from a guy, and I know we had somebody on yesterday from South Africa, but I think this might be the furthest away right here. This message. There was a gentleman that watches us in South Korea.
Ooh.
Now, can you recall anybody from the Pacific Rim checking out the show?
No.
It says he's a government contractor over in South Korea. It says, it sure makes things better watching the videos on your website. Sure miss fishing back home. Keep up the good work. Enjoy the show. That is from David Myrick.
Cool.
South Korea. So, you have any goals or any aspirations to go to the Pacific Rim? Japan?
No.
Guam?
No.
That's not the... Well, I guess it is. Kind of. Singapore?
I would like to go to Japan. I mean, that's cool.
Dude, that's your style, though. That's kind of how you roll.
My style?
When it comes to fishing. All that stuff that they do over in Japan. That's kind of how you roll.
What, with the clear water and the swim baits and the super finesse stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you have to remember, I mean, look, there's a lot of guys from Japan who are power fishermen, too. I mean, Marizo's a power fisherman.
I know, but what is Japan
a power fisherman
known for?
They're known for the technical stuff.
Yeah. It's right up your alley. You're a tinker.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'll stick to, like, Falcon and Amistad and then, like, Canada. I'm good there.
That's
for
it.
now.
No
I
Mexico?
Mean, if it comes
No
up,
Mexico?
Well, you know, I ran that story on Polinick last month where he basically went on.
He was with tigers and elephants and monkeys and all kinds of
journey,
stuff.
And you know, you get done talking to him, you see the photos of it, and you're like, man, that would be kind of cool. So yeah, I would like to go over to Japan and see how they do their bass stuff.
How about
here.
peacock bass in Brazil?
I would love to do that. You can also go down to Miami and do that.
Yeah, but they're tiny.
No, they're not like the 20-pounders.
They're not exactly
catch the knife fish and all the different.
Why settle for that when you can go to Brazil and catch the mammoth ones?
You know what? Once the money starts rolling into BTL, Mark, and I'm getting $2,000-$3,000 an episode, then I'll go to Brazil.
You know who's got a connection with that? Judice's got a connection with that.
Yeah. They've got
he's done it multiple
Mexico
times.
And Brazil. No, that does sound very, very
but
interesting
no Japan.
To me. Yeah, I told you I would. I'm not opposed to it, but it's not like top on my bucket list. Hey, did you ever have to go there for UPS?
No.
When you worked?
No.
Have you ever been there?
To Japan?
Yeah.
No.
What's the farthest you've ever been?
Hawaii.
So you've never been
That's
over
halfway.
to Asia?
No. I really have. It would be cool. It would be, okay, let's go over for a couple days, and I think 2 or 3 days would be enough.
I mean,
for me.
I know how tough it is just to get up to Alaska with all
I'm
the
all over
flights
that.
and all that stuff. I couldn't
I'm
imagine. You know, so Dean Sylvester, the guy fishing the Bass Nation, he's fishing the Southern Opens.
Yeah.
He's like flying back and forth like 4 or 5 times this year from Australia. Like Carl would come over and like stay for a chunk.
Yeah.
He's like coming over for like a week fishing, then flying back, then doing.
So
his
what is he
thing,
doing this year?
He's fishing the Southern.
Is he?
Bassmaster Southern Opens. He's like an engineer.
Of
or
which
something
they're
over
at the
there.
Harris chain right now.
Yeah.
So, All right. Now, what do your sources say? I know yesterday you were talking about that guys were going to other lakes to try and catch fish because their fishing was so bad.
It'll be okay. It's
You think
Florida.
so?
It takes them a couple days to
There's another
recover.
front.
I was looking at the.
There's another front coming through, dude.
at another front coming through, but someone will always catch them. Has there ever been one where they didn't, even if in the cold front?
Yeah, there has been.
But still, someone will win. It's the same thing. It
well,
just doesn't.
I'm not saying
But yeah, it'll
somebody's
be
not going to win.
one big one, and then like 4 squeakers will do you a world of good.
Yeah. Yep. Let's see here. Did you see? And I know you're going to rag on me for the whole weather talk, but this is fascinating to me. Did you see that Niagara Falls, of which you've been to because of the Elite Series stop that is right by there, Niagara Falls is freezing. It's so cold. That's pretty cold, man.
That is cold.
That is miserable cold.
Have I told you the story? I don't know if I've told the story on air when I fished the Wednesday night jackpot on the Niagara River with Darren Schwinkbeck.
No, I don't remember that.
It was one of the years we were up there. A former Elite Series guy wore the hockey jersey, and we were jerk baiting the middle of the river. You could see the spray from Niagara Falls. How close we were. Like the buoy was like right there.
Were you a
like,
little concerned?
Couldn't go. I mean, I don't know how. I mean, knowing Darren Schwigbeck's track record, I'm not sure how well the motor worked on that thing. But no, it was cool. You could actually kind of hear it, and we were sitting there catching them in the middle of the Niagara River, like a little 3-hour jackpot.
Yeah.
It was fun. I enjoyed.
All right, man. I'm going to give you a homework assignment, and you only have to go back 20 years. All right, go back to 1999.
Okay.
I want you to go back, and I want you to tell me how many Elite Series / BP Top 150s, because that's what it was, or Top 100s or whatever it was, before the Elite Series. How many tours started in Florida?
From 1999?
20, yeah.
So
out
you
of
want
20,
Bass and FLW?
No. Just
Bass.
Just Bass for right now.
Okay.
And then if it comes out the way that I think it's going to come out, we'll take a look at FLW. How many do you think out of 20 years that the season kicked off in Florida?
12? 11 or 12?
Okay. Where else are they going to kick off?
Texas, Louisiana.
But I don't think they did. I mean, I was just trying to recall this morning. I was like, man, how many times have they started someplace other than Florida?
I mean, it makes sense. I've said that. I mean, you look at those guys like Randall Tharp, Chad Morgenthaler, Charlie Hartley, and you see the Shryock brothers always spend a lot of time down there. Jay Brainerd spends a lot of time down there. There's a ton of guys who have kind of figured out if you can figure out Florida. You know, we talked about with Swindle yesterday.
Yeah.
Look at the first half of his career. Triple-digit finishes, got his butt kicked when he started in FLW in Florida, and then he kind of figured it out. Figured out how to fish it down there. And that's a great way to get your first quarter or eighth of your year kicked off with some checks and a strong finishes in the Angler of the Year. Because the guys who don't get Florida are behind the 8 ball before they even know it. I mean, they're 2 weeks in, and you have a St. John's and an Okeechobee or a Seminole and a Toho.
Where are some other places that they could start? Now, you got to take into consideration now, you got to have a good cell signal.
Right. Well, there's not really, because if they start anywhere else, they got people like you going, why would they start there? It could be icy. There's
places out there.
To start.
There's
in Florida, you mean?
no other places in the country.
I mean, what? South Carolina?
Havasu,
Santee Cooper?
Havasu.
Yeah.
Could you not?
The Delta.
Could you not give
Start out there on the West Coast.
Start out on the West Coast.
Absolutely.
And then
They just had the Arizona Open, and I saw guys fishing in T-shirts.
Yeah.
So.
Why not? Why not start and give the West Coast some love?
Well, they did in 2015.
That was their first event?
No, yeah, when they did the wasn't it the California Delta in Havasu?
It wasn't their very first events, though. They didn't
No.
kick off the season.
That was a third and fourth.
It was like, I think it was Amistad, Falcon. You know, one of the
one
two.
year they
and then
started
Amistad.
down at
and then-
Amistad. They
because
started
that's
2
what,
years down
That's
at
what
Amistad.
the very first year that Remitz fished.
Yeah, that was...
You remember he led after day one at the Delta after winning at Amistad.
I think that was 2007.
Yeah, and they obviously started in Texas.
So,
but
like I said, I'll go back and look at it 1999
Texas,
on the past 20 years.
Arizona, California, and New Mexico. Is there a place in New Mexico maybe?
Elephant Butte.
Yeah. Where else? Someplace in Louisiana.
Like I said, South
Mobile,
Carolina.
Somewhere around southern Alabama maybe. I don't know. It's just become the norm, and I don't know. I think it would be a great opportunity to actually showcase once again what's going on out in the West. You know, I know it's expensive, but when you kick off the season out there, maybe it takes a little bit.
Kicked off at Gunnersville a couple years ago.
Yeah, it was freezing.
Sam Rayburn this year.
Yeah.
So I mean, even FLW hasn't
Yeah.
done it every single.
I don't know. All right, good show today. As we mentioned, we're going to have Steve Kennedy on. And kind of weird, man. He did not have that vintage of a Steve Kennedy season this year.
60th in the Angler of the Year points. His top finish this past year was an 11th on the Sabine River.
Yeah.
You know, other than that, he didn't have a single top 20. Which is
not very
which is
vintage
shocking.
Kennedy right there.
Yeah, he usually contests. Obviously, we saw what he did the previous year there with the win on Lake Dardanelle.
Yeah.
Swimming that ugly, ugly jig.
And one of the vintage video clips from that season, do you remember that when he was going around those cattails and he kind of pitched it up in there and swam it back and bam, and it was caught on live?
Yeah.
One of the
It was
best.
a bush.
Yeah.
A bush.
One of the best moments on live, though, was when he caught that. I don't know what it was. 7 pounds.
He's had some good moments. I mean, you go back to the Classic. Remember when he was pitching into those sticks with that jig on Conroe and was just, never seen a guy fight a fish while in the Classic with a chance to win, talking to the crowd and laughing while the fish is just going nuts. And he's still fighting it. And he's like, oh, look at that thing. It is angry.
Yeah.
I mean, my heart would be in my throat.
All right, a couple other things real quick. I just want to ask you, Matt, should the referee that blew the New Orleans call, should he be fired?
No, he should be suspended, though.
Not fired.
No.
Should he be fined?
Yes.
So suspended without pay, basically.
Yes.
All right, man. That is turning into a huge, huge deal. A lot of people weighing in on that one. I don't know. The other, somebody made a great point. There was actually a sports book in New Jersey that was refunding people's bets, actually giving them credit based on the outcome of the game because of that call, to where, like, if you wagered $100, they're going to give you $100 worth of credit to wager on something else.
Wow.
As a result, they're not giving you money back. In other words, because you have a losing ticket, they're not going to give you money back, but they're going to give you $100 worth of credit that, hey, man, you want to bet on whatever, the NBA, the
Whether
NHL,
or not
whatever.
He gets fired.
So it's just, I cannot recall in any sport a call that has been scrutinized and really discussed more than that call.
No.
And think about how much money, millions and millions of dollars were lost and also gained because of that call.
Yep. One thing I did want to bring up before we bring Kennedy in is perusing social media. Favorite fishing, big push with Dustin Cannell and Zach Burge just wrapped out. They both kind of unveiled their wraps over the last couple days.
Yeah.
Like full out truck and boat, the whole 9 yards.
It's a lot of money.
Pretty it's a pop and wrap too. So it'll be interesting to see their kind of development, especially with their presence in the YouTube scene too.
Yeah.
And then I was watching a tip on Skylar Hamilton, blade baits in the wintertime. Guess what hat he had on? Favorite fishing.
They're spending a lot of money.
And it's pretty obvious. You could see going into this year, they're targeting that younger crowd out there, the 20s.
Once again, they're spending a lot of money, man. A lot of money. So we're going to see. It's pretty easy, man. You got Gozadas. You better have Gozinas.
Kennedy's still using rods that he was using before all those guys were even born.
How many sponsors does Steve Kennedy have? One? I think one. A good one. So we'll talk to him about that. I still think he has one of the coolest wraps out there. The whole tiger look. All right, we're going to take a break. Come back with Steve Kennedy. Rolling on a Tuesday. Everybody stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Sleek new design with easy control file. The clearest images underwater with uncompromising range. Live mapping from the touchscreen. View notifications, video, even Google Maps on screen. And for the first time ever, real-time view of fish movements with live sight sonar. HDS Live. New from Lowrance.
It's about the hours spent getting everything just right. It's the attention to detail. Good just isn't good enough. It's the years spent on the water day after day. When you tie on a bait by Strike King, you're standing on the shoulders of legends.
Pros depend on hydraulic jack plates to get the best out of their boats. Do what they do. Demand Atlas performance. Atlas gets you from the bottom to the top in less than 8 seconds, even with the big 4-strokes. And when you gotta turn right around and get that heavy load back up in rough water, Atlas's innovative design and American-made components will get you there with confidence.
I'm at Depot. Just look for yourself. There's an Atlas jack plate on just about every professional's boat.
The Atlas hydraulic jack plate. You can depend on it.
Hey guys, Aaron Martins here. I'm going to be telling you about a new product by Sunline. It's Siglon PE x8. I've been using it almost extensively all year for my frogging, flipping, drop shotting, shaky heading, worming, jerk baiting. It's by far my favorite Sunline braid. I honestly, I don't say this unless I think it's true, but honestly it's the best braid in the market out of any of the braids. Definitely check it out. It's a price point line, $14.95 for 165 yards, and that could last you a whole year, just one spool with using leader material. It's Siglon PE x8. it's my favorite braid, and I think if you use it, it'll be your favorite braid too. AFCO has a new foul weather rain suit called the Hydronaut. A lot of the features that I really like about it first is the speed vent hood. If it's raining out, you know, how a person gets wet is when you run down the lake and the hood comes down. With the speed vent hood, it's going to stay up. It has a camera mount in the pocket on the chest. The Hydronaut has a 2-layer, 100% waterproof nylon shell. If you're interested in a rain suit that has a lot of cool features that's going to keep you dry, you need to check out the Hydronaut from AFCO.
All right, we are back on a Tuesday. Show number 8 of 2019, Matthew.
This stat just got even crazier.
You're digging them up, aren't you?
Well, it's like one stat, but I just went over to the FLW, and it's a trend, Mark.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, maybe we can find out the reason.
Holy cow, look at Steve. Look at all the trophies in the background. He's got the wooden eagle, life vest. If you are listening on iTunes, this is worth pulling up the YouTube page and watching it.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah, let's bring him
Looks
in.
like Van Damme's trophy room behind him.
Steve, how are you?
I'm doing good. And no, I couldn't fit them all up there. That's just the ones I can squeeze in.
Where'd you win that? Didn't you win that eagle? I remember, didn't someone get...
I won 2 eagles with FLW, yeah. So the pulling chainsaw guy used to carve those, you know, on site and award them as a trophy. So yeah, my mom has one up at our cabin. I think you've seen it before.
Yeah.
And then I have one here at the house, but that's not where it usually stays. But I had to throw it in there.
And then are those all sorts of sports balls over there behind your other shoulder? Is that like a soccer ball, a basketball?
Oh, it's right by the back door where the basketball goal is. So yeah, all the kids' stuff is down here.
Oh, that's like the stuff you use. It's not like signed by Auburn legends.
No,
right?
no. Only
Okay.
sign on there, yeah, our name so it doesn't get lost. I did throw Mark's bowling pin up there.
Oh, yeah, I see it.
Yeah.
You gave him a bowling pin?
Yeah.
For what?
With 2006, we were bowling at Grand Lake, I think.
Yeah, do you remember that? Were you around
that was
it?
the very first thing I ever did. Is that the one that like Zona went to and
Van
Kevin and
Dam?
all that?
Yeah.
You won that, Steve?
I didn't win it. We all got one. I got Kevin's signature, Mark's signature.
Wait, you're
Jordan
saying you got a
signature.
participation trophy for participating in it? Mark gave out a trophy to
Oh, no,
everyone?
no.
Boy, that's a little hypocritical if you've been
No.
listening to the last couple shows, Mark.
I got a bowling ball over there in the corner, too, he hooked us up with, too. So,
Exactly.
in the good old days.
Man, that was a long time ago. Jeez, 11 years ago. Long time. All right, Steve, man, we appreciate you taking time out. And a lot of people already on the instant feedback. The decision to fish the Bassmaster Elite Series, how difficult was that decision? And what can you tell the people about your decision to stay?
It was extremely hard. They're offering a lot more money, offering potentially a lot more exposure as far as TV goes. But but for me personally, I mean, I live 30 minutes from Lake Martin. I can go catch 50 to 100 fish a day anytime I want to go. The only time I go is when I take the kids or friends, family, whoever wants to go. But yeah, I can go catch pound and a half fish just till I'm blue in the face. So, you know, for me, it's about going to catch big fish. So spending the next 5 or 10 years chasing that next 1 or 2 pounder just didn't appeal to me. So that's probably the biggest part of it. But yeah, what? Let's go somewhere else. Come on, man.
That's the only thing we're going to talk about. A lot of people are curious, Steve.
There are a lot of people. Anyway, a lot goes into that. I didn't sleep for probably 2 weeks, and anyway, I made a choice. I wanted to fish both. Honestly, I would have preferred to fish both. I'm surprised there weren't more guys that were, pursuing that. I honestly think a couple of them made a mistake, but that remains to be seen. So, but yeah, I just saw a thread online talking about, will the industry change, more toward a, smaller baits type deal, and I think it's, it's going to go that way to some degree, but I think a lot of it, the sponsorship money is going to come back to guys that are fishing the big baits. I think there's going to be a new frog guy. I think there's going to be a new swim bait guy. I think there's going to be a new guy in all those categories, and anyway, I wasn't willing to give up what I had with bass to go chase something that may or may not pay off.
You're the new white swim jig guy, the heavy white swim jig guy, Steve. That's your new calling.
Anyway, I've won a bunch of money with that thing. You keep it on the down low as long as you can. But.
You've been on live in the Classic on the final day. You've been on every single deal with that. It's not like
we can't hide it anymore. I won it. Everybody sees me winning where were we? West Point with a big swim bait. But yeah, I was catching a limit in 15 minutes flat on that white jig every morning, and then I could go hunting all day. So. Anyway.
Who wins? You get one day unknown body of water, Tom Monsoor with his light black swim jig, or you with your heavy white swim jig?
It'd be fun to do.
That it would be. All right, let's talk about. Obviously,
I got one. My biggest issue with MLF was they didn't have a qualification system. They essentially played God with who gets to fish and who doesn't, and they got a lot of the best guys, but they got some guys that probably wouldn't have requalified on the elite. So there's going to be a lot of backlash from that. I think you see that online, and everybody was excited about MLF before, but when they pull all these guys out of bass, out of a format that matters to tournament anglers, there's going to be some backlash from it, no question.
All right, let's talk about, obviously we want to talk about 2019, but I want to reflect back to your last season, not what I classify a vintage Steve Kennedy season. What are some of your thoughts when you reflect back and look at your performance from 2018, Steve?
From 18, the biggest one for me was Hawaii. I looked at the forecast. We were looking at, 20, 30 mile an hour winds in there, and had some huge storms come through a couple of those evenings, but yeah, I chose to stay close, and after all those storms came through, the lake turned milky. I don't know how to describe it, but yeah, it went from catching tons and tons of fish to weighing in one fish on the second day, and that's the biggest one to me, but anyway, I had a few moments. I didn't win, but I had a good one going down there at Sabine, and had a little bit of help on Saturday. I think there was a whole club broke up over that deal, but
Wait, what? Go with that one again. What happened?
What's that?
What happened?
They had a club event go out on Saturday of that event at Sabine. They went out of that bridge that was, a mile from where I was fishing, I guess. And there were 3 or 4 guys that were in there fishing when I got there. And I think their club split up over it, the way I heard it. But
wow.
Yeah, tell me about it. But anyway, I still had opportunities to do better than I did. I think I was, I don't know where I was, first or second. But I had opportunities to do better than I ended up finishing, for sure. I missed a bunch of fish that last day.
All right, help me out here, because as we open the show, I like to look at the numbers. Not to the same level that you do as an engineer who can see patterns and stuff and rebuild engines on your garage floor. But I'll notice some trends, and this one shocked me. I don't know if you're even aware of this, but dude, you have one really bad tournament every single year.
That's where Hawaii comes in. Yes.
No, that's why we bring it up. But, you go back to 2012, you had a 96, a 93rd and 13, and then in 14, 15, 17, and 18, you had a 100th, a 102nd, a 104th, and a 102nd. And then from 2002 to 2008 on the FLW Tour, you had at least 100th place finish in each one of those. At 9 of your 10 years on the tour, you've had a triple-digit finish.
But look at all the hardware.
No, that's
Matthew.
what I'm saying. It's hard to believe.
There's
you think of
also
Steve.
7 wins.
No,
in there,
that's what I'm saying. Talk about the balance between all those wins, but the zeros. Would you have those 7 wins without the 9 triple-digit finishes, or is that something that you go, you know what? I'm going to finish 100th in one of these, but I'm also going to win one just because of the way I fish.
That's not it. Those events were the ones I had the best practices in. That's what, and something changed. I don't know, I don't remember each event. I'll have to go back and look at them, but it's a rare occasion where I don't know what's going on. But yeah, I get dialed in on something. It's just absolutely incredible, and then it's gone. And, one that comes to mind was Mississippi River. Where were we? Ross Barnett.
Yep.
Man, I had them dialed in, and then we had that hailstorm the night before, and I watched who won that one? New guy. He was in the black
Dustin Cannell. Dustin
Cannell. He was all over me the first morning, every place I stopped. But I was fishing up on the flat in 1 foot, 2 foot of water, and he was fishing off the edge. But man, I saw him 5 or 6 times and had no clue who it was. I'm in the bag line like, who is this guy in the black Costa boat? He's giving me fits. And yeah, I think I must have been 100th. I don't know. And he won. So, but I just never got dialed in on where they went to. And then I think he picked off most of them, when I did try to do it. So.
And then wasn't the Bull Shoals in 2012? Didn't you have like 25 pounds following your swim bait?
I was throwing that big swim bait down there on the lower end, and I had wolf packs of 3 and 4 pounders were just choking it everywhere. But it was a late afternoon type deal, and never happened in the tournament. So it's just so yeah. The worst finishes, majority of those were where I had my best practice. Hawaii, I didn't feel like I was on them that great, but again, you had a major storm. 2 major storms, so changes everything.
I didn't bring that up to point out the negative. I just wanted to see if there was a correlation, because some guys that if you ate first, you're last mentality, the Ricky Bobby. I just wanted to see if maybe you knew, like,
everybody
hey,
keeps telling me I need to, with the cat on here, I need to put me on my shirt. So
like Keith Poche put that sticker on this year.
Yeah. Steve, you mentioned practice, and I'm curious with you, what would be the best number of practice days for you going into an event?
2 days. The 2 days right before the event, I did the best when I was fishing 2 tours, fishing 25 events a year, and going from one to the next. And I'd show up, I'd get a day, 2 days of practice. FLW back then had their gold card where you didn't have to go to the meeting. So I'd send my wife or, somebody else to represent me at the meeting. And I would practice till 6 o'clock the night before the event. And that's when I did the best. Bass is, with all these FLW guys coming over, they're trying to push to have a day off. And I'm like, Monday's practice to me is wasted. So, Sunday's going to be even worse. So, but, it works out if you're out there fishing offshore looking for those big schools of fish. But in the springtime, I just, a day and a half right before the event, and let's go because it's going to change.
So you mentioned Monday's day is wasted. It's interesting. You're saying some of the same stuff that Matt Herron said last week as far as before. You think that's just too far in advance to try to have anything that's going to stick for 3 days in the future?
Right. In the springtime, around the fall, and those fish are coming up or moving out. And, it's not totally wasted, but yeah, fish we find on Monday, it's just too likely somebody else is going to go through there and stick them, and weather changes. Anyway, yeah, a week out is, if you're practicing a week out, you need to be looking out deep for, something where they're going to stick around type deal. So,
In those trophies behind you, where you lifted them, when did you find those winning fish?
Dardanelle, I found them the last day, the first day of practice at Dardanelle. I went running around swimming a jig and all that grass, and I caught them, and I caught them, and I caught them. And then day 2 of practice, I don't know if a front came through, water dropped, something. I think I had 3 bites all day kind of deal and got scared. And so at 11 o'clock on the 3rd day of practice, I decided to run all the way up to the dam up above. And, it was filling. I knew there was huge flow. I always do well in that type of condition. So I went running up there looking for a home run, and I found it. So yeah, I didn't even take off. We had a meeting. We had to be out the water at 2:30, and I did not start running up that river till 11 o'clock. And I had maybe 30 minutes up there, and I really didn't get it dialed in until afternoon on the first day of the event. I didn't even run up there till afternoon. And what's the other one? Clear Lake here. I found huge schools of fish. I caught 60 bass the first day of the tournament out there, and only weighed 20 pounds in 51st place. And but yeah, I ended up dialing them in with that HUD on day 3. So, but yeah, the actual pattern I was using, I dialed in during the event, and then the other one is West Point, which I finished 3rd in the Everstart, skipping a Cinco around those cypress trees. So I knew that was going on. And so, yeah, I practiced Monday, Tuesday, stayed off the water Wednesday. We had huge storms. I think it was Wednesday. I stayed off the water. But yeah, I remember going to that meeting. Everybody's crying about how bad it was. And I'm like, dude, there's 20-pound bags everywhere. So.
That's interesting. Cool.
That's awesome. Hey, a follow-up question. Brian from Lake Norman, he wants to know, how did you find the flooded pond on Dardanelle?
Okay, it was, there was a very, very small pond visible on Google Earth, but nothing that I thought we'd get into. But I actually ran up there, that last day of practice. There was one, I tried to fish below the dam. It was so rough, I couldn't fish. I had a bite behind some kind of wing dam up there, but I didn't catch him. And then I went in a creek on the opposite side, and it was just slammed full of bait. I mean, you're idling in, and gizzard shad are just spraying. Some of them even landed in the back of the boat. There were so many of them, but never had a bite in there. And then I got back out there on the main river, just drifting down the river, and I could see the water over there behind the levee. I mean, it wasn't a foot from going over the levee, but I went idling back up there. It took me a while to figure out how to get into it, but it was a miracle, really. I mean, I'm just sitting there, just idling, eating a pack of crackers, and I see water. How do you get there? So.
Wow, that's one of the more memorable live segments that was on Bassmaster Live when you caught that one fish.
That last big one, yes. I had a bite on my white jig early in the morning back there that I didn't catch, but yeah, that was the only big fish I caught in the back of that pond. Most of them were out there toward the mouth where the water was kind of, moving in and out type deal. So, but yeah, that one was a miracle fish for sure.
I mean, talk about getting back into these hidey holes. You've run in aluminum in the Classic, gone way up. What is the most stuck you have ever gotten in your life, Steve? Where you, just absolutely screwed.
I've never been that stuck. Come on now. I did get stuck. At Lake Martin this year, and I spent 20 minutes getting out. I called Trip, and I called my dad to come get me, or at least attempt. But yeah, the water came up. I'd practiced. I'd won a BFL up in a place many, many years ago, and I couldn't get there during the practice, and the water came up about 8 inches, and I had looked at it. I'd scouted it before and thought I might be able to get into it if it came up a foot. But anyway, I ended up shutting the boat down about 20 feet short of where I needed to be, and it took me 20 minutes to get off of that one. But luckily there was enough water in there to get it back on plane and get out. But I've never spent that much time stuck in one. I mean, you get push pole out every now and then. But
All right, I want to go.
One, not anyway, not recently. Anyway.
All right, I want to go back to the instant feedback. Justin in Eufaula notices the unit that you have behind you, and he wants to know, have you used any of the new live stuff?
I have the new live units. I do not have the new transducer. So I was thinking it was coming out in February. I think I've heard March now. So not the unit itself, the side scan, all that just isn't all that much different. I mean, I hadn't been out there using it, but I've been playing with it. I've been making sure I got all my maps and everything here. I spent a lot of time doing custom custom like Google Earth type maps. So Google Images. So
all right.
We haven't talked about this in years, but didn't you build your own side imaging?
I did not build my own. I looked into it. I have an engineering degree. A lot of my electives are in acoustics, vibrations type stuff, and so yeah, they're back before, I guess it was Humminbird came out with these things, but back before they came out with it, there were a lot of hobby sites online that told you how to do it. The big hang up was a transducer cost $10,000. So yeah, I spent probably 500 hours looking into how to build my own, and luckily they came out with something, and it's amazing how they've improved them since then even. So the original ones, they used to tow like a torpedo. They called it a tow fish behind the boat, and they were typically 3 to 5 feet long, I guess. And
wow.
And now we're doing it with a 8-inch transducer. So it's impressive technology. And honestly, I don't know a whole lot about this live stuff. Not sure how they're doing it.
All right. So
anyway,
so you're running Lowrance stuff. Tyler in College Station wants to know, what trolling motor are you running?
I got that. Is that the Ultrex, the Spotlock? Yeah.
Yep.
So, anyway, yes, it's amazing for sure.
Out of all the guys, I figured you would be one of the guys who would be like, I don't need the Spotlock.
I went a long time without it, and then we went up to where was the AOY that year? At
Mille Lacs.
Minnesota, Mille Lacs, yes. And so I actually had one, bought one and installed it just for that event. So anyway, it's not worth the time to swap it out.
I mean, with your sponsor,
they held up well. I've been very impressed how they've held up. It makes me concerned to have a motor turning everything, but I've never had an issue with one. So
we were talking about this before with your Bass Cat is the only thing that's on your jersey and the Auburn on the hat. I mean, do you pay full price for this stuff? Do you just log on and order it off of the site, all your tackle and everything?
I mean, Tackle Warehouse gives us a discount, and the trolling motor, I ordered it through Bass Cat, so yeah, they give me a discount, I guess. But no, I mean, Minn Kota used to give me a trolling motor, and then I qualified for the Elites, which they didn't sponsor at the time, and so yeah, I lost from leaving FLW to come to Bass. I lost that deal, and never worked it out since. So just. It gets complicated, but yeah, I buy most of my own tackle or make it myself. So I say that. I mean, DNL gives me jigs, and I can call up Yamamoto. They'll send me Senkos as many as I need, and same thing for Reaction. They'll send me baits, and I talked to Zoom just a little while ago. They'll send me baits if I ask. So I mean, I don't buy it all, I guess, but if I need something, I buy it. It's not a big deal.
One sponsor on the jersey. Is that right, Steve?
I'm gonna have Lowrance and Power Pole on this year.
Oh.
Power Pole, I was one of the first guys to have a pole, but I had it on that little that 519 Ranger, and with all my batteries and everything, I just didn't feel like I had enough freeboard on the back of that boat. So I quit running them for a couple of years. But no, and we were at Lake Conroe, and the forecast was for 30-mile-an-hour winds. I knew I'd be dead in the water at noon. So they put poles on my boat the day before the event, probably about 5 o'clock the day before. So So yeah, I'm gonna be supporting Power Pole. They've been helping me for a long time. I mean, yeah, Lawrence helps me out. They've been giving me units for a while now, and without asking anything of me, I guess. So I'm actually gonna have them on the jersey this year. But at this point, I don't have anything new to add. So kind of thought we might. But
Steve's got to be like the only guy who can look at a graph and like understand what's inside of it. Like understand how it works, not just, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do not understand the live. I'm not sure what I don't know what's going on there, honestly, but I understand how it all works. Yes. And that's an advantage at times. I know the limitations of certain things. So,
all right.
When it first came out, guys didn't understand what they were looking at. They didn't understand what the shadows were. And so, yeah, that was probably the years I had the biggest advantage was when it first came out. And, I got all the way to number 2 in what was it? Not Angler of the Year, but Bass Fan World Rankings. And that was probably mostly because of side scan. And nobody else knew what it was. Now everybody's doing it. So not the advantage it used to be.
All right, I want to go to the instant feedback. Will in Indiana wants to know, what type of swim jig would you recommend?
Okay, the jig that you see me swimming is not a swim jig. It is it's a flipping jig, and but around here I swim it high and fast and then drop it. It's all about the fall to me. So yeah, the typical 1/4, 3/8 ounce swim jig that most people are just swimming through the grass steady type deal is not what I typically do. So I'm fishing a 5/8 ounce. It's a DNL Advantage flipping jig, and comes through cover better than any other jig I've used. But it's not your typical swim jig. But yeah, keep the rod up high, swim it up high real fast, and you kind of get a fish. You ever seen the movie The Hunt for Red October, the Crazy Ivan?
Yes.
You remember that one? So that's basically what I'm doing. I'm fishing it up high with my rod high, kind of a pendulum effect. But yeah, keep the bait up high, swimming it fast, and that fish is following underneath it. And when you drop it, it's almost like dropping it in a bucket, because it comes down and their mouth comes up, and you got him. But as far as swim jig type deal, I don't have a typical swim jig. I don't have one that I use a lot. I mean,
all right. Austin, and I'm not sure what state Austin's in. I'm not talking about Austin, Texas, Matt, as you
State of
chuckle.
confusion.
No. He wants to know, how do you catch fish on Lake Murray in February?
I mean, depends on the weather a little bit, but I had a real good tournament. I had a real good tournament. I was at an FLW where they caught the snot out of them, and I was catching them on those flat sides in the backs of the creeks. But no, I think there'd be a jerkbait bite going on for sure. And outside of that, if it's really cold out there on the bottom, a football jig type deal is pretty hard to beat in February if you get on the right school of fish. So. Maybe even that mop jig. They got blueback, so yeah, the mop jig may be a better deal.
Mark meant to say Lake Martin.
What'd I say?
Lake Murray.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
It's just a little bit of a difference there.
There is a difference. There's a huge difference.
There's a huge difference.
You're going to have that poor guy out there dragging a mob jig going, damn, Steve, I haven't caught a single thing in a month of dragging this mob jig.
I'm really sorry. Jeez, I'm an idiot.
I didn't want to call you out, but I figured it was kind of important. You're dealing with.
I'm sorry.
They might bite it at Martin.
You want to edit your answer at all now that it's a different lake? So
That's pretty funny. I don't think I've ever
Martin
done that.
is slam full of spotty bass right now. The bluebacks are in there. We've always had numbers, but now they're all in that 1.5 to 2 pound range. And this in the wintertime, November, December, 50 to 100 a day is 100 a day. I think of as average. Incredible numbers of fish. But But yeah, I'd be looking for largemouth if I was fishing a tournament. I'd be looking for largemouth in the backs of the creek. So swim baits and little crankbaits, obviously, after that last event. So,
All right, Maynard wants to know, what is your setup for your Cinco?
I have an old 6-foot Kistler, medium heavy, and then I'm using the new Daiwa. I've got what's that thing called? A Certate, I think it was. I used to use the Shimano Stratix, and they got away from the back reel feature on them. So yeah, I bought me a couple of the Daiwas to try out, and
Spinning tackle, right?
For the Cinco. Yeah, I'm usually skipping it underneath something. Either a cypress tree comes to mind, but docks, and so yeah, I like to skip it. So and I guess I used to use 10-pound mono is what I typically would use, so it floats. So I call it fly lining it. So yeah, you just skip it in there and watch your line. If the line starts swimming, you got him. So
that's pretty cool.
Why is everyone starting to hate on the back reel? I'm a huge back reeler. I've back reeled since I started fishing, and now, it seems like it's almost like a lost art now.
I don't know where that went. I mean, if you go way back, the old Mitchell reels that we used to spin the other way and bring the line to your finger. So but yeah, all the drop shotting, I don't think you really have to back reel type deal. I mean, you set your drag loose and play them, and that's what the majority of the guys that are using spinning tackle are doing. But yeah, when I skip back under one of those docks at Oneida, and if I want to put pressure on him, I need to get him out of there. So having a loose drag is a mistake. So he'll get tied up. He'll be going out the other side of there.
Hey, Courtney wants to know, sinker or no sinker?
With the Cinco?
Yeah.
Typically no way, but I will pitch it on a bait caster with, a 3/16 maybe. So it works great there too. But yeah, if I'm doing it, typically I'm skipping it and I'm rigging it, Texas rig, not wacky style typically. But I still hadn't found a wacky hook that I like that won't hang up every time I skip it in there. So.
All right, Clay in Texas wants to know, what's the biggest thing that you're looking forward to in 2019?
I mean, as far as bodies of water, St. Lawrence River, that was those fish were so much bigger this year. Numbers were up. It's just an incredible place to go in the summertime. And I mean, it's a huge tourist area up there around Alex Bay, and then down there where we're staying is a little, toned down a little bit. But yeah, the kids love it, and the weather's perfect. And I was looking forward to the St. John's, but I keep hearing all this eelgrass has gone out of Lake George, so I'm a little nervous. Gonna have to relearn that one. But yeah, I'm always excited about catching an 8 or 10 pounder. So I've had my opportunities for sure.
Where was it up north where you were catching like king salmon on fly rods and stuff?
I mean, we came around the top of Lake Michigan. We went up through that upper peninsula. I don't know what event we were coming from, but yeah, we try to do those type trips everywhere we go. Where'd we go this year? We went all the way to Oahe, and after that, we went out to Yellowstone and got to catch some of those big cutthroats in Yellowstone River. We got to hit the opening day on the Yellowstone and caught some huge cutthroats on a fly ride.
Where was it where you were scuba diving?
I did that in St. Clair that one time that y'all were making fun of me, but we got to go to the Keys every year. We didn't make it down this year. We had some health issues with my wife's family, so yeah, we didn't make it to the Keys, but we try to go to the Keys every year to snorkel, not scuba dive, but kids absolutely love it. I am not certified to scuba, so and not sure I want to be, so I can't get my ears to pop.
Huh.
Can you even swim, Mark? No, that's a serious question. I know you don't you're a little timid around the rough water. I've never seen you.
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
We've been talking about this MLF, and I heard the guy from Eufaula talking, and it reminded me of one I wanted to bring up, and that was this, MLF and conservation and all that. And I asked Mark this question, and I'll ask Matt, but what percent of the bass in a given lake do you think die every year, whether we catch them or not?
Oh, I've had this conversation with Steve, and it is fascinating. I mean, we got time.
I mean, I'd love to.
Well, I know the answer because I had the conversation with him before.
I kind of had it with him too, but
way more than you would think.
Mark guesses at less than 1%, and
no,
I have yet to have a conversation with anyone that is even in the ballpark.
I think I guessed like 15%.
And so yeah, I had this conversation. I used to work for the Georgia DNR, and I had this conversation with my old boss, and a place like Eufaula, which is an hour from me, a fertile southern reservoir, 60% would be a typical number. Across the state of Alabama, I found some stuff online, so 40% of the bass, in our given lakes die every year. That'd be average across the state. And, as you get further north in colder water, 30 to 35%. So, when we start talking about, whether it's 3% or 20% of tournament caught bass die, it's insignificant to the population. And, that's not saying go out there and kill them and abuse them and do all that. But yeah, people don't realize how many bass are in these reservoirs and how many are dying from natural causes every year that have a much bigger impact on what's going on. Habitat, grass, whatever, is so much more important than what we're doing as anglers. I even read one article that, the guy understood what was going on. With our current catch and release practices, you could keep every bass weighed in every event and not have a significant impact on populations. You could keep every one of them, and you wouldn't know the difference. So,
wow,
that's people just don't realize, and I'm sure I'm gonna stir up anyway. I'll be surprised if it doesn't stir up a storm. But people need to educate themselves on this stuff. We got Lake Martin right next to me. There's no size limit on spotty bass. We got Lake Eufaula down here. There's no size limit on spotty bass, and they're actually trying to get the size limits lowered so people will keep more small fish. If you look up, Google pond management, you have to take out, in an average unfertilized pond, you need to remove 10 pounds of bass per acre per year to keep it in balance. So we have to, there's exceptions, but there's places where we need to be taking out small bass if you want to catch better quality fish. And I heard this from biologists going back 30 years. I remember going to work for Georgia DNR and hearing one of the biologists say, because of catch and release, we can't get anglers to keep enough bass to make a difference. And the current thing is that they're not even sure, even if they kept them, they can make a difference.
Wow. Had no idea.
Right. I even went so far as to ask the question, why don't y'all tell people this? Why don't you explain people this? And they're like, we don't want to get in a fight with, the average, for lack of a better word, redneck at the ramp that didn't catch a fish that day.
I call BS on that. There was a club tournament last weekend. I saw a dead fish.
Oh, jeez.
It hurts my soul to see some of the arguments from some of these guys. And I heard the same thing with the Alabama rig, like we're going to destroy our fisheries with this deal, and it's not possible, dude. It's not.
Wow. All right. That is some good stuff there, Steve. And
it's stirring the pot, but
yeah.
but
All right.
I wouldn't say it if I didn't believe it. So
All right, let's go to the instant feedback for a couple of questions, and then man, we appreciate you taking a little bit more time today. TJ in North Carolina wants to know: have you caught every species of black bass, including Swanee, shoal, and Guadalupe?
I've definitely caught the shoals. That is my favorite bass by far. I want to say we've caught the Guadalupe. I mean, we've been out there. We fished Falcon and
Travis.
Amistad. I want to say I caught one somewhere in there, but I have not been down to catch a Swanee. I would love to, but and honestly, I believe there's more species than or what have currently been described. We always call, these fish in Lake Martin, we call them spotted bass, but they've actually been reclassified as their own species called an Alabama bass, and not even closely related to the spotted bass that you have up in Arkansas or Oklahoma up that way. They're very closely related to our shoal bass here,
but different than a Coosa River one.
The Coosa River spots are their own species called an Alabama bass.
Okay, that's what's in Martin.
That's what's in Martin, yeah, Tallapoosa River, the whole Coosa chain, Alabama, anything Alabama River chain. So yeah, that would be Tallapoosa, Coosa. I don't know what, is the Warrior connected to that? So, and then the shoal bass are in the next system over, which is Apalachicola, Chattahoochee, and Flint River. So I grew up 5 miles from the Flint River, and catching those shoalies is one of my favorite things to do. They're probably the largest species that can't live in a lake. You never catch them in a lake. They have to have moving water, and 3 to 4 pounders are, I won't say common, but you catch them pretty regular, and they fight harder than these smallmouth we catch. So
I feel like the smallmouth on like Chickamauga and stuff, or the spots on Chickamauga and stuff, they're different too, aren't they?
I think those are Alabama bass. But I know they put them in. Strader's been catching them over there in Watts Bar, that type deal. So I'm pretty sure those are Alabama bass, and the West Coast ones, the California ones, are probably Alabama bass, not true spotted bass. But they don't distinguish for record. So. But it has been described as its own species, and we've got some others. I mean, they're much smaller. We catch here in the Tallapoosa that are, I don't know if they're Coosa red eyes or what, but in the springtime, in May, they've got this blue tint to them. They're incredibly gorgeous fish, but you rarely catch one over 12 inches long. So, not sure what that's.
All right.
Some kind of.
I'm sorry, Steve. All right. Back to the instant feedback. Justin in Eufaula wants to know, does Steve have any of those square bills that Matt was talking about yesterday?
So what was Matt talking about?
I was talking about the Ed Chambers mutts. M-U-T-T.
I don't have the mud. I've got a bunch of the E1, E2s I got from Kevin Short, Peepers type deal, but I've got some Ed Chambers baits that go back 30 years, I bet. I got them back when I was fishing Redmans from a friend of mine, but yeah, I don't have any of the mutts, and I've been reading about them. I actually know what it is, but I don't have them. So, does it work? What I miss?
I just asked Swindle. I got one. I sold it to my buddy, and I wanted to know if I made a mistake by selling it. I sold it before I even fished it.
Okay, and you got $50 or $60 for it?
Yes, yeah, I got $60 for it.
$60. That's probably the going rate.
Yeah, Gerald said I screwed up.
I'd have never fished it, so
neither did I. That's why I sold it before I fished it, because I knew that if I fished it, I wouldn't be able to sell it. So,
but yeah,
anyway.
all of his old baits are seem to be worth $50 or more. They're not making them right now, so. And I don't know if they're planning to or not.
Do you make crankbaits like square bills, balsa baits, stuff like that? I mean, I know you make a bunch of stuff. Do you do the crankbait deal?
I made a bunch of the flat sides at one point, yes, and I didn't think they were any better than the ones I could get store bought. So I didn't keep up with it, but I've never made the bigger ball, so no.
All right.
I repair a bunch of them.
Yes. All right. Last question, Steve, and it comes from TJ in North Carolina. What are your thoughts on the Auburn basketball season, and have you recovered from the loss to Kentucky?
I watched that game, and wasn't they go on a 19-2 run at one point? So, and it still almost came back and won it. So anyway, it's been fun to watch them. I mean, something's wrong around here when we're talking basketball back around Thanksgiving. I remember talking basketball right before the Iron Bowl, so it's unusual. But yes, they've been doing really well, but we're not committed to the basketball like we are football. So it is what it is.
Have you been to any games?
We typically go to the women's games, and I don't think we've been this year. We usually have season tickets to the women's games, but no, we have not been. Anyway. I think I told all you we've had a rough off season around here. So
yeah,
my wife had gallbladder issues, and that was fun. Dealing with hospitals and all that stuff is always fun.
All right. Well, Steve, man, as always, a treat to have you on the show, man. Wish you the best in 2019. Hopefully you can get a few more pieces of hardware to add to your collection this year.
I've got a lot more. It won't fit down here. I was trying to throw some of it up here for this deal, but that's not where it usually stays. I got to clear off my desk a little bit. But anyway, I thought I'd throw in there a few tidbits for you.
Very, very good stuff. All right. So best of luck to you in 2019, and we will see you very soon, Steve.
Okay.
All
yeah.
right.
2 weeks till practice. So.
Yep.
Thanks.
All right. Take care, Steve. All right. There you have it. Steve Kennedy. Good stuff. Mm-hmm. I only interrupted him a couple of times.
Well, this is not fair for to analyze your interview critiquing strategy with Steve Kennedy.
Wow.
But the thing is, you don't want to interrupt him because he always says,
it's great
that's
stuff.
When the most interesting stuff is after the long pause because
Yeah.
he's thinking about it. He's like, do I say it? Boom. And then he says it.
Yeah.
But then when you actually give him the time, then he is done talking and then you get the awkward pause. So it is what it is. That's a Steve Kennedy interview.
Yeah.
He does a great job.
Very interesting stuff about his whole theories on conservation and fish mortality.
Yeah.
I did not realize that.
I mean, he is very knowledgeable. It's not just what he thinks. I mean, he researches, studies it, has the background for it. Like you said, he worked for the DNR, so.
Good stuff. All right. Tomorrow, third show of the week, we're going to have Brandon Polinick on. He is going to be en route to Florida. I spoke with him yesterday on the phone, and there is a chance that he might be in Florida by the time that we have him on the show tomorrow, so we'll just wait and see. He's going to be live via Skype, get his take on so much that's taken place. But, dude, I'm telling you, I'm ready. I'm ready for next week. I'm ready to start talking about performances.
Mm-hmm. You care to make any predictions on Polinick's season? Because you remember how that turned out last time for you.
I'm sure he would be motivated. No, I have no idea. How can you predict somebody that's going to win Angler of the Year over on the MLF side when you don't even know where they're fishing?
I mean, yeah, but you can kind of get a feel for the guys who have the 7 years of experience fishing those events.
I mean, if I threw a name out there, you know who I'd throw out? Greg Hackney.
Yeah.
That'd be one
know.
name.
I mean, I think Andy Morgan might be pretty tough over there.
Yeah.
You don't think Van Dam's going to be rejuvenated?
I'm sure he is, but I don't know.
I hope one time this year, I just want to see a KVD Andy Morgan showdown on the final day of MLF, battling it out pound for pound, about 10 pounds ahead of everyone else, where it's just those two, and you can kick your feet back and watch Andy Morgan and KVD go at it.
Might happen. All right, Polinick on a Wednesday. I want to thank Steve Kennedy for taking time out. Great stuff. Make sure you review us if you're listening on iTunes. Keep the comments and the emails coming, folks. It's been really good. Greatly appreciate the feedback. And we will talk to you tomorrow, Wednesday. Paul and Nick, we're out of here.